Welcome back from the break, everyone. I hope you got some snacks and some stretches. I apologize for the construction outside. I know it's kind of distracting, but hopefully we can, ignore it. And our next presentation is Lorenzo Villela and Sophia Pierucci with a presentation titled Navigating Narratives, the Cultural Relevance of Maps Through History.
Yeah, so thank you a lot for that introduction. Obviously, we're doing the Navigating Narratives, Cultural Relevance of Maps Throughout History. Starting off with some of the first maps ever made, we have the Babylonian map of the world, which was one of the first maps ever recorded on a clay tablet. They put themselves at the center of the map because it was the center of their world at the time, and the Babylonians were one of the most important civilizations of the 5th century BCE. A little later on, we have Ptolemy that would introduce latitude and longitudinal coordinate system in 150 AD, which helped with the expansion of the Roman Empire. Looking at non-Western societies using advanced mapping techniques for exploration, there's no better example than the Micronesians and the Polynesians, who use stick, shell, and star charts to navigate and aid in their voyaging across the Pacific. So some popular maps in art and literature include the original Treasure Island, which was one of the first books to popularize pirates, treasure maps, and this precedent allowed for other stories like Peter Pan, Pirates of the Caribbean, and all other pirate stories that we see today. Another classic example of a book that includes a map from the early times, the Chronicles of Narnia, that takes a fantasy world from a book into a map for the readers. And this was one of the first insanely popular maps made of a fictional world that doesn't exist.
So taking these fantasy maps and putting it to the big screen, we have The Wizard of Oz, the 1939 adaptation, and this movie was iconic for many reasons, with phrases like "there's no place like home" and "follow the yellow brick road" introduced into our American lexicon. And besides those phrases being preserved throughout history, it is also one of the few films to be preserved in the UNESCO Memory of the World Register, which is just in case we have like massive nausea or amnesia, we want to remember this movie the most. Continuing in the same era, we have Casablanca, which was made and set in World War II. And the opening title sequence, as you can see in this picture, shows the geopolitical state of World War II. And again, we're having large-scale preservation of these maps, as it is the first film to be preserved in the National Film Registry.
All right, so moving on, we got to our 80s movies. So closely inspired by stories like Treasure Island, Raiders of the Lost Ark put Indiana Jones on the map and put cartography and archaeology in the public eye on a massive scale, including two of the most famous movie maps that have ever been made in cinema. Another 80s movie is Labyrinth. That is another movie directly inspired by Wizard of Oz, where the main character gets lost in a labyrinth and tries to get out. Also has the ultra cool David Bowie in it, so we love this movie.
So moving on to the early 2000s, I grew up with Dora, and she played an integral role in the child development, and there's been plenty of studies with children and their spatial acquisition abilities using the map, and she also set a precedent for Hispanic characters in Western media, so she's one of the main reasons we have inclusive cartoons today. And then moving on, we have a Japanese cartoon, One Piece, which follows pirates that sail around a world pictured in the right here, and they look for treasure, the One Piece, using artifacts and lost maps. And in Harry Potter, namely the third movie, we have the concept of the Marauder's Map, which is a map that shows all the active locations of everyone in Hogwarts, including people and apparitions. So Professor at Carnegie Mellon took this invention and applied it to real world. So it has a foot sensing floor, which he put in farms so he can monitor the livelihood of livestock, and he wants to put it into hospitals so we can monitor our patients. And Pokemon Go, the pop culture impact is largely understated here. We all know at least Pikachu, but if you never played the games, you kind of go through towns pictured in the one below. 8 of them to become the Pokemon champion, and this sense of going outside was fostered into the hit 2016 game, Pokemon Go, which at its peak had around 45 million active players. And GTA is another video game based on real life. Locations like Los Angeles, and you can do virtually anything in a 1-to-1 scale almost map. And Interstellar is a very, very big, critically acclaimed movie by Christopher Nolan. And Kip Thorne, who is a theoretical physicist and a Nobel laureate, served as an executive producer and a scientific consultant for the film, and he wanted to make sure everything in the film was scientifically accurate. So when they were trying to visualize going through a black hole, everything was so accurate that it led to research visualizing somebody going through a black hole immediately after the movie concluded.
All right, so moving on to TV series like Chronicles of Narnia that used a map to portray a fantasy world as a means of storytelling. We have Game of Thrones as a 3D map in its opening credits that evolves as the story progresses with the rise and fall of family homes. This show ended up winning 2 Emmy Awards for Outstanding Main Title Design based off of this 3D map opening sequence, and remains one of the most popular TV shows of all time. Moving on to some modern movies, we have The Adventures of Tintin, that is based off of a Belgian comic and also references Treasure Island again by using maps to look for treasure, and it won the Golden Globe for Best Animated Feature Film of that year. Another modern movie is Top Gun Maverick, which is a movie that follows fighter pilots using special technologies like 3D maps and models to clear an insanely difficult obstacle course. And you have Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise, so it's an awesome movie.
So moving to the state of maps today, we all use GPS to get around, subsequently with things like Uber and Lyft. But there's also Google Earth and Google Space, where you can explore 3D models of our planet and our moon, and other planets and their moons, which begs the question as to why we have such sophisticated technology for something that's 200 million miles away, but none for our oceans. So as you've seen today, the maps we've showed you were largely land in space, with our only ocean representation being pirates who trailed the 7 seas looking for treasure. But the real treasure, guys, is right beneath our noses with our reefs. This is a map unlike anything you've seen before. It's an orthomosaic of our reefs. We built this here at the Mega Lab using our 3D mapping technology, which we use as a means for identifying reef health so we can better inform conservation practices and evaluate management around the world. By being the first to do this, we are hoping that our maps will come to be just as, if not more, important and culturally relevant as the ones you've just seen today. And we are starting to do this by first developing this technology that protects our oceans and then distributing it to the communities that need it the most. Those being communities here, communities on the mainland, and even communities in Tahiti. So we prepared a video for you today so you can see some of the maps we were talking about.
We're trying to get the audio to work.
Yeah. It's fine without it.
Do you mind if I see? Because it was working when I tested it. Oh, that's why. Got it. All right, so sorry guys, because there's supposed to be audio to it. I guess the HDMI tried to connect it further
I
up.
think it's there. Okay.
But yeah.
That concludes our presentation.
Any questions?
Yes, any questions? Yes.
The map that you showed at the end, what was the scale of that?
I believe it's down to 1 centimeter scale.
Like, and where, like, the whole, what coast, what part of the ocean?
It's off the west side of the Big Island, so it's part of our West Hawaii project, looking at.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
So yeah, what that is, basically an orthomosaic of one of our 3D models that we've made from West Hawaii on the Big Island, looking at different species identification and different, essentially different plots that are part of the larger study that go into eDNA work with some of the LIBU identifications, as well as, as well as going through just being able to visualize the 3D reefs in a 3D space. So yeah, sorry, but that was
Yes,
a good question.
question.
Yep.
How does this 3D
maps and we can calculate 3D metrics, so we can annotate and do a bunch of other stuff. It's a lot of terminology I don't really want to delve into, but since it's a 1 centimeter 2 scale, we're able to actually measure the colonies and then, depending on the project, trace them out and then calculate the area of those colonies as well, so we can get percent coral cover.
And from that, we also have a baseline to monitor the current health of the reef, and then see as these places change, you'll have to be able to know what it's supposed to look like compared to if it's getting better, if it's getting worse, if there's declination, if the coral reef's actually getting healthier. So yeah, thank you. That was a good question. Yes.
Sorry if I already mentioned this, but how do you take the pictures of the reef, or how do you map it? What do you use to map it?
It depends on like what camera you're using, how far you are from it, but you just kind of swim in like a lawnmower pattern almost, and then we put it into a system that compiles all the images and generates this image.
Yeah, usually, I mean, it's technically SFM photogrammetry, but you set your scale bars on the reef, go on the lawnmower pattern with usually a Sony camera, and a water housing, take thousands of photos coming across, if those of you that do know about photogrammetry. And then from there, you can stitch it together on Metashape and then export it to GIS that you can analyze thereafter. So yeah, thank you. Any more questions? Cool. I guess thank you.